Dear Sir, I have heard you mention the practice of who am I many times. But honestly, how can a single question open the door to liberation? Simple? It is simple, but not trivial. The question is like a sharp sword. If you use it correctly, it can cut through all illusions about yourself. The problem is, most people just pass by it as a philosophical idea, instead of letting it penetrate deep into the core of their consciousness. When you ask who am I, the purpose is not to find a verbal answer, but to step back and look directly at the person who is asking. When you do this, you will see that all thoughts, memories, emotions, the body, all are just phenomena that arise and disappear in awareness. They are like clouds passing through the sky. You are not a cloud. You are the sky, unmoving, vast, clear, untouched by clouds. Questioner, but isn't it true when you say I am a man or I am a woman? You are saying the truth, but it is only a relative truth. It is like when you dream that you are a soldier or a mother. In the dream it is true, but it is not the absolute truth. This body, this name, this gender, are all temporary garments worn by the self. You have worn countless such garments in your births and deaths, and the irony is that you have forgotten who the wearer is. When you identify yourself with the body, you immediately confine yourself to a narrow framework, and from that arises fear, desire, suffering. But when you realize that you are not limited to this body, a boundless space opens up, and with it, absolute freedom. Questioner, but if you drop all these concepts, what will you have left? Will you disappear? The only thing that disappears is illusion. The small, individual I, conditioned by memories and desires, will vanish like the darkness at dawn. But the light of the true self has never left you. It is there, unchanging, immortal, pure, just as it is. You need not fear. Reality does not swallow you, it frees you from the prison you have built with false identification. When you question who am I, to the end, you will see clearly, you have never been an ignorant individual. You are pure, all-pervading consciousness, unborn, undying. Questioner, but how do you keep this question constantly in your mind? Thoughts keep coming in. When thoughts arise, do not try to fight them. Just ask gently, who is thinking this? Immediately, the attention turns to the one who is aware. Thoughts are like waves on the ocean, and you are the ocean. The waves may rise, but the ocean remains the ocean. This practice is not about creating anything new, but about removing what obscures your true nature. Questioner, the I you speak of, is it God? When understood correctly, there are no two. The self is really no different from God. When the individual mind dissolves, what remains is the absolute reality. You may call it God, Brahman, or the true self. These are all just different names for the same reality. And that reality is not far away, it is you, right now, right here. Questioner, it sounds simple, but why does it feel so far away? Far away only because you think you have to attain it. But reality cannot be attained, it can only be realized. Just as the I cannot see itself, you have been searching outside and have not recognized it within. When you stop searching as an individual, you will discover the very pure presence that you are, already complete, already complete. Questioner, so what is the secret to the success of this inquiry? Be consistent and honest. Don't let it become a dry exercise. Each time you ask who am I, ask as if it were the first time, with all the desire to find your own origin. When the truth is revealed, all searching ends. You will find that you are the unchanging peace, something you have long thought you had to seek somewhere far away. Living in the light of I am. Questioner: Sir, suppose I have felt some of my true self, but then everyday life with its worries, responsibilities, emotions, pulls me back to the small I. How can I live in the world without losing awareness? What I feel is natural. The initial recognition is like a flash of lightning illuminating the night. It comes, brightens, and then disappears. But when I persistently return to the question who am I, and abide in the stillness behind all thoughts, that flash becomes a never-ending dawn. Remember, you do not need to leave the world to maintain awareness. Instead, see the world as it is, a stream of phenomena floating in infinite awareness. Like an actor on stage who knows he is playing a role, you still do your duty, but deep down you know, the role is not you. Questioner: But emotions can still have a strong hold on you, especially when you are offended, or have experienced loss, or injustice. Emotions are powerful waves, but they only rise on the surface of the mind. If you cling to them, you will be swept away. But if you return to the position of the observer, asking who is feeling this, you will see that the emotion arises, stays for a while, and then disappears, without being able to touch the deepest part of you. It is like when it rains, the ground is wet, but the sky above remains dry, unaffected. You are that sky. When you live from pure awareness, you are no longer caught up in the script of emotions. You still see, still feel, but you are no longer identified. Questioner: Does that mean you become insensitive? No. On the contrary, you will become more emotionally whole than ever before. But it will be pure emotion, untainted by the selfish I. You will love without asking, give without calculating, pity without being tormented. It is love that comes from the very source, where there is no longer a separation between me and other. Questioner: So what do you need to do in your daily practice? Whenever you find yourself caught up in a stream of thinking or reacting, just stop for a moment and ask, who is experiencing this? Don't rush to find an intellectual answer. Just return to the feeling of stillness that is aware of everything. If you do this continuously, little by little, you will find that stillness begins to permeate all your activities. Let life become your practice. When eating, when talking, when working, even when facing difficulties, keep a part of your attention in that pure awareness. You will see, gradually, the separation between practice and life disappears. There is only one reality, presence. Questioner: You once said that the true self is never lost. If so, why do I practice? The true self is never lost, but I have forgotten it because I am always looking at temporary things. The practice is not to create something new, but only to remove what is hidden. It is like the sun is always shining, but the clouds cover it so that you cannot see it. You cannot create the sun, you just let the clouds go away. Questioner: When you abide in the self, how does life change? When you truly abide, the world remains the same, but you are no longer the same. Peace is present even in adversity. Fear disappears because there is no one to lose. Love flows because there is no boundary to hold. Life becomes a natural flow, where everything happens without resistance or holding. Questioner: it sounds like total liberation. Yes. Liberation is not a place, nor a special state. It is simply the realization that you have never been attached. And from that moment on, you live as that, no more seeking, no more fear, just peace and freedom. Overcoming the illusion of time and suffering. Questioner: Dear Sir, I have begun to experience moments of stillness while questioning who am I? But then, memories of the past and worries of the future come flooding back, pulling me out of my peace. How can I overcome this loop? The past and the future exist only in the mind, and the mind only functions when you leave the present. When you are truly in the present, there is nothing to remember, nor is there anything to worry about. I is not a story of what has happened, nor is it a vision of what will happen. Look closely. Whenever you think about the past or the future, that thinker is present right now. Just turn around and look directly at that person, and you will see all thoughts fall away, and only pure presence remains. Questioner: But there are wounds from the past that still hurt, as if they belong to me. They hurt because I believed them to be mine. Once I realized that I am not the body, not the mind, those wounds were just passing images, like clouds passing by in the sky. The sky is not wounded by dark clouds. Real suffering exists only when someone identifies with the story. When that person disappears, the story becomes harmless. Questioner: You say that all suffering can disappear immediately? Suffering does not need to disappear, it was never real. It is like a darkness, which does not need to be fought to be dispelled, just open the door to let the light in. Likewise, you do not need to fight against suffering, just turn back to the light of your true self. Then the darkness disappears. Questioner: What about time? Is liberation a long process, over many years of practice? Liberation is not at the end of a road. It is here, right now. The road exists only for those who believe that they are far from the destination. When you realize that I is inherently infinite, without distance, there is no time. Time is only a measure of change, but that which perceives all change, you, has never changed. If you stay there, you will see that the past, present, and future are just waves on the same still sea. Questioner: So who has truly attained liberation? No one has. When the illusion of I is dissolved, there is no one to attain, and there is nothing to attain. There is only the pure self, which is always there, never bound, and therefore does not need to be liberated. Questioner: If so, what is the point of this whole search? The point of searching is to realize that you never needed to search. It is like a person who is dreaming of water, running everywhere, and then waking up to find that he is still in the house, next to a source of water. The whole journey is just to break the dream. The self, the world, and the ultimate truth. Questioner: Sir, if everything is just perception, is this material world real or just an illusion? The so-called world appears only when I wake up in the morning and disappears when I am in deep sleep. What exists regardless of whether I am conscious of it or not? The world does not stand alone, it appears in the mind, like an image in a dream. The only thing that does not disappear is perception. Find out what is aware of this appearance and disappearance, and you will see clearly what is real and what is temporary. Questioner: But I touched the table and found it solid. Doesn't this prove that the world is real? When I was dreaming, I also touched the wall and found it solid. solidity does not guarantee reality. What makes me believe it is real is not the nature of things, but the belief of the mind. When you wake up from a dream, all the solid things in the dream disappear, but you, the knower, remain. Liberation is the awakening from the long dream called life. Questioner: if the ego is just an illusion, why is it so powerful that it misleads you? Because you have never looked directly at it. The ego is like the darkness in a closed room. When you do not illuminate it, the darkness seems real and dominates everything. But with just a ray of light, it disappears. The ego has no substance, it exists only through your consent, through the habit of identifying yourself with your thoughts. When attention is withdrawn to its source, the ego dissolves like mist before the sun. Questioner: so other people, family, friends, society, are also part of this illusion? When you dream, in the dream there are also friends, family, lovers, enemies. All appears real until you are awake. Being awake while living does not mean rejecting others. On the contrary, you will see that all are expressions of the same single awareness. Then love becomes pure because there is no longer a separation between I and other. Questioner: if all is one, why is there diversity and conflict? Waves on the ocean come in many shapes, but they are all water. Diversity is the play of life, and conflict arises when a wave thinks it is separate from the ocean. When it realizes that it is water, it is no longer afraid and no longer fights. Questioner: what is the ultimate truth that you want to show us? The ultimate truth cannot be expressed in words, because all words belong to the mind. But you can directly realize it by turning back and looking at the very origin of I. There you will see, there was never a bound individual, there was never a journey to be taken, there was never anything but the boundless, still, luminous being that you are. Conclusion: awakening no longer back. When the dialogue ended, the room was filled with a wordless silence. Not because there were no more questions, but because the answers had reached a place where questions were no longer needed. Ramana Maharshi looked straight into the eyes of the person he was talking to, but that gaze seemed to penetrate the form, reaching the core of the listener. He did not say anything more profound, but only softly said, "You are what you are seeking. There is no journey, no destination, only this truth, forever present." There was no more debate, no more tapping of pens. There was only a complete silence, a silence that was not the absence of sound, but the absence of illusion. In that silence, all the suffering, all the worries, all the stories that had been tightly held suddenly became as light as the morning mist. The listener realizes that, in this very moment, he is not a seeker, not a bound individual, but pure awareness, undamaged, unborn, and undying. And in that light, the question "Who am I?" is no longer a method, but an ever-open door. Not to step out somewhere else, but to see one has never left home.